Hello everyone, welcome back to another video by me. This video is going to be another video that's a little different from all my other ones, as it's another Blender tutorial. The reason I made this one is because you guys seem to really love the last one, so I decided why not do another one, but instead this time, instead of covering how to create a Minecraft thumbnail, it's going to be pretty much a basic tutorial on how to get started with Blender if you're just beginning. So if this does really well, I might turn it into a series, but we're going to be covering three main things in this tutorial. 1, how to create objects or mesh. 2, how to texture those objects with color. And 3, how to render your image. So let's get in. After you've installed Blender, I'm using version 2.1a. It might be a good idea to use that version, but you can use any version. It doesn't really make much of a difference. You will be presented with this screen. It might be a little bit different depending on what version you use, but you want to go ahead and press General. So that loads up a general file with nothing but a cube, camera, and light. So the first thing I'm going to be showing you is basically how to move your cube around, which will be here. It'll be selected. Transform it, so scale and resize, and then rotate it as well, just because those are the basic things that you need to know. So once you have it selected, you'll see an orange outline around it, and you can move around. You move your work camera around by using this axis up here. You can click on the different axes buttons to get a direct view, but you can move it around, or if you have a mouse, you can just middle click like that, and it'll move around as well, but I like to use this just for a bit more precision. So, how to actually scale it. So when you open your Blender file, you'll be presented with this toolbar here. Now this thing has the ability to do a few different things. So you can drag select, you can move stuff around, scale, rotate. So with your cube selected, you press one of these buttons, let's say move, and then using these arrows here, you click and drag to move your cube on that specific axis. So green for Y, so as you can see here, I'm moving it on the Y-axis, red for X, and then blue for Z. And as you can see, really simple. Now, if you want a bit more free movement around this, and it doesn't really rely on the axis, then you press the G key, or drag in the middle here, and you can move your mouse around, and it moves it a little bit more freely, so you have a bit more control. Next thing you can do is rotate. So this is how you rotate. You click on the rotate button here, or shift spacebar R. And I should mention that the keyboard shortcut for move is shift spacebar G. And using the same axis lines, you can rotate on all of the axes, and it looks like that. And then there's outside, you'll see you won't really have to use this a lot, but it's kind of useful if you've got different proportions on your work camera than it is on your actual camera. You can use this little white line here to actually move it around based on the axis that your work camera is on. So if I were to go here, it would rotate it just normally on the x-axis, but I don't tend to use that a lot because these ones give a little bit more precision. If you want specifics, so if you wanted to say rotate at 90 degrees on a specific axis, you click on this button here. There's rotation X, Y, and Z. So let's say you wanted to rotate it 90 degrees on the Y, you would click here and do 90. And you can't see it because we haven't textured or made any differences, but it has rotated it on the Y axis. So if you want to do that for a little bit more precision, then go for it. Same thing with location and scale, as I will show you in a minute. The final one here is scale. So scale, exactly the same thing. Use the different axes arrows pretty much, and then just move your mouse around in order to change the scale. And then you can just use the middle to drag it up. So you can also use S to get the scale up, and you can just move it around using your mouse. And also, I should mention, you can just press R on your keyboard to rotate it, and it'll automatically rotate it like I showed you already with this grey outline. And then G to move it around, as I already showed you. So, with that said, if you want to do this all at the same time, so you press this button here, it's called the transform. I like this a lot. This is the one I personally use mostly because it just allows for, you can basically use all the different options at the same time, and it's just very convenient. So I'd recommend using that, but hey, it's your choice. One thing I do quickly want to mention is I want to explain how to create mesh or objects. So there are two ways you can do this. You can either go add, and it'll bring up this little list here, or you can go Shift A, and it'll bring it up, wherever your cursor is. So I've got a few different add-ons down here, so you'll see this will be a little bit different it'll look a little bit different to mine, but that doesn't matter. All you want to press, in this case, for tutorial's sake, is go Mesh, and then let's just say UV Sphere. Then in order to scale it, you go S, and then you can scale it just to actually see it. So that's how to create objects. So, let's move on to the second part of the tutorial, which is the texturing part. So, before you actually start texturing, you want to make sure you go up here and use viewport shading. So that way, it actually renders the color in, depending on what texture you use, when you're actually in the viewport, so you don't have to render it to see the color. So, when you click on the cube and you go into the Materials tab here, you'll see that it already has a material set. Now, that's normal. That's because we've loaded up a general file. Now, you can, if you want, press this minus button here and then create a new material from blank. But for the purposes of this tutorial, we'll just be editing the default material loaded up in already. So you'll see a few things here. We're not going to be focusing on this too much. If this does really well, I might do a tutorial on how to use basic nodes, which is this stuff down here. But we won't be focusing on that today. So all you're going to be really doing, using is the base color here. So you want to click on that. And depending on, we'll just take it up to full brightness here. Depending on the color that you want to change it to, you'll move your thing around the color picker here, and you'll see that it's actually changing color. So let's say we want a blue cube. There we go. You'll see we've dragged our little pointer here over to the blue part of the color picker, and you'll see that the cube has turned that shading of blue, and it looks really nice. If you want a different color, then you just move it around, and if you want it to be darker, then you move this little key here, and it becomes darker and darker. And if you want full black, then just move it down to the bottom, and no matter where you put it, it will be black. So for the purposes of this tutorial, we'll just make it. Let's just make it a nice red color. There, that looks nice. So, before we move on to the rendering part, so texturing was pretty easy, we're going to click on this light up here, and we're going to drag it a little bit forward to the cube. So, just so when we actually render it, it's a little bit well lit. So, what we'll do is we'll go over to the viewport rendering, up here, so just click this button here. It's right next to viewport shading, and you'll see that without having to render it, you can already see what it's going to render as. So if we move the light around, the light will change. So let's move the light to a place where it's going to look pretty well lit. So not too close, not too far. We won't do anything too complex for the purposes of this tutorial. Let's just say that here. Yeah, I reckon that looks good. So what we'll do next is we will delete the camera, because this camera is proportioned in a way that I don't quite like. So we'll get rid of that camera, and then using Shift A, or Add up here, we will create here it is, camera. And it will spawn in the middle of our project down here. And then what you want to do is you want to move it up here, or wherever you want it, your choice. But I'll move it over here, and then what you do is you press 0 on your number pad, and you'll see what your camera is seeing. So I think that's pretty even. That looks pretty nice. So what we'll do now is I'll show you guys how to render your image. So the final thing that you want to do in order to get it rendered is go Render and then Render Image, or the shortcut is F12. And then there you go. There you'll see what our render result is, and the camera will be, it'll show what the camera is seeing, all fully rendered. And yeah, if you're using a different engine, so I'm using AV for the purposes of this tutorial, so it doesn't lag too much. But you can use Cycles, and it does lag a bit more. So I like to use AV just for tutorial's sake. But Cycles does look a lot better because it has global lighting. So we'll go Render Image, and if you want to save this as an image, you go Image, and then Save Image, and then it'll tell you what to name it. So I'll just show you Image Save, and then you just go into your Images folder, and then just call it whatever you want, and you press Save as Image. Then in order to save the project, we will do either File Save or Control S, and then it'll take you to where your other projects are, and then you save it, and then you press Save Blender File. And that's it for the first tutorial. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like. If you'd like to see the rest of this series, please leave a comment below, and make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.